On Jim, coming to you from RotoWire. We're at the Week 10 start sit question. I've got a camera up here for Instagram, got a camera down here for Twitter and YouTube, so be looking around a bit here. So please, thanks for dealing with that in advance. Let's get to your questions. See what we got. We got a game going on, halftime right now, the Bucks and the Seahawks. All right, Eric, you need help beating Alan Soslowski in your league. All right, you need Pollard or Wilson. So Pollard saw a similar snap share with or without Zeke. That was interesting. He had the blow-up game against the Bears. I think people just assumed, oh, wow, Zeke's out. Now he has all this work. He had no extra work, really. A couple extra touches. But nonetheless, Pollard's a really good back. He has a great matchup. Green Bay is not just a bad run defense. Not as bad as last year a little bit, but Devondre Campbell's out. They have multiple injuries here. So I think overall this is an attackable matchup for Dallas on the ground, so it's a good matchup for him. However, Jeff Wilson also has a good matchup. Cleveland's going to have to worry about the speed at receiver for Miami, so there's going to be something to worry about there. So I think both of these guys have a good floor, but I think Pollard may have a little more ceiling here in a game that probably Dallas leads, whereas I could see the Cleveland game going either way, and the passing game could be heavier. A 50-50 on that one, but I am going to lean Pollard a bit there. Have an Insta question. Christopher, Zeke's a game time decision if he's inactive. Kyren Williams, Eno, or Gainwell. Personally, I'm going Kyren Williams. I think they have to involve him. They're not getting anything that they want out of Henderson. They're not getting anything out of Akers. I think they kind of have to use him, whereas Eno's only going to see a small role behind James Conner, and Gainwell just doesn't get enough. He had a touchdown last week, but he doesn't get any work. So I almost would have to say, if it's me, I'm going Kyren Williams. I think the safest floor is Eno because we know he'll get 5 to 7 touches no matter what. We don't know what Kyren Williams will get, so I guess there's that. All right, let's see. Starter said Cooper, Kupp, or Olave with Stafford. So you want to Kupp or Olave? Wow. I mean, Cooper Kupp is probably still going to get 70 yards, I would think. Now, Arizona's held him to his two worst games. One worst game last year, his worst game this year. And so they do have a little bit of success against him. I just think sitting Cooper Kupp is problematic because he still could see, 12 to 15 targets. And whereas Olave is a great player, but he has a low floor where we could get in 8 points. I don't see a problem if you start Olave, but I'm starting Cooper Kupp just because if they make him the focal point of the offense and they throw him 15 times, he's still Cooper Kupp. All right, let's see what else we got here. I think Randy had a question here. Let me see if I got one here. Randy had one with Kyler likely out. Would I suggest Pickett, Heineke, or Colt McCoy? Pickett's tough to trust. Saints, they're still missing Marshawn Lattimore, but I still think Pickett, it throws so many interceptions. Heineke, Devontae Maddox, the slot corners up. The outside corners are still there, and their pass rush is good. I'd probably go Colt McCoy because at least he has receivers. He has Hopkins, he has Ertz, and he has Rondale Moore. I'd probably lean Colt McCoy there. Bialy, thanks, man. Appreciate it. And by the way, if you're on YouTube, please hit the like button. I'd appreciate it. Subscribe button would be great, too. Swift or Jamal Williams? So we kind of know what we're getting here. Williams, this is a good matchup. Now, this Bears-Lions game, either team could choose to run. Either team could choose to pass. We're not sure how they're going to attack, but we do know Jamal Williams has a floor. We know he's going to get double-digit touches, and it goes without question. So you have a high floor with Jamal Williams. Swift, I don't care. They think about the injury report. He's probably going to see 30 snaps. We saw that last year. He came back from the injury, clear from the injury, only getting 30 snaps or so a game. So it's probably more of the same for him. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking there. But so I think this is real simple. If you want a basic floor of about 10 to 12 points, with a little more, with some room for upside, Jamal Williams. If you want to risk a low score for a potential blow-up game, Swift could have 2 long runs or a long reception. He can always have that game-breaking play. So I think if you want safe, it's Williams. If you want to go boom bust and take some risk, then I think you're looking at Swift. I'll take another question here before I go back to Instagram. John. 2 in the standard league. Gabe Davis, T. Higgins is on a bye, so you're not going to start him. Olave and Ayuk. So I'm going to go Olave and Ayuk. I think Gabe Davis, I'm worried about him because the game plan was with Josh Allen's elbow hurting. I think the downfield element had to be taken out of that. I don't know how they responsibly say you're going to rip the ball downfield with your elbow injured. So I think you're going to go with a more underneath attack, and that hasn't been Davis's game. And with Higgins on a bye, I think it's Olave and Ayuk all day long on that one. See if I have another instant question here. Russell Wilson or Goff, and then Matt Collins or Peoples-Jones. You're welcome. I appreciate it. So I do think Russell Wilson, although he's been bad, I think it's a good spot for him. Tennessee played 101 plays on defense last week. They have 4 starters out and maybe a fifth. Their cornerback Christian Fulton turned as well. And I do think Russell Wilson's in a good spot here to do at least have a high floor. Goff in cold weather worries me. It's under 40 degrees in Chicago, and it's not a huge track record, but he has been one of those guys. He seems to not do quite as well when he's in cold weather. And so I probably go Russell Wilson there. And then I go Peoples-Jones over Hollins. It doesn't matter that Waller and Renfrow are out. Hollins been a full-time player. He only played like 10 less snaps than Devontae Adams all year, so he's been a regular part of the offense. Now, his role doesn't change at all. Peoples-Jones, at least 50 yards in 5 straight games. 4 of those games were over 70, and it's a great passing matchup, so that's the way I'm going there. Dollar bill. Pickens, Sutton, or Gabe Davis. Well, you probably heard me talk about Gabe Davis a minute ago. I'm very concerned about game planning in Allen's elbow, that they're going to let him throw the ball downfield. So I would be safe and move Davis to the bottom of the stack. Now, in terms, Sutton had 3 bad games before the break. 2 of them, though, one of them was Sauce Gardner. He had another tough cornerback matchup. I think they just went away from him. So I think that Sutton out of the bye, this is a good matchup for him. So I think that Sutton comes in and he does very well in his return to action against Tennessee. Christian Fulton is injured his hamstring. I don't know if he's playing or not, but they're now 4 defensive starters. Pickens is like boom bust because Kenny Pickett just hasn't proven ability to successfully get the ball consistently to his receivers. So I'm going to say Sutton's the best play. Pickens is more boom bust. He has upside, but he has a lot of downside too. And I'm going to give Dave Davis the sideline because, again, I expect the game plan to be short passing. Kevon, Evan Ingram, or Pat Freiermuth. So Pat Freiermuth has just had a really high floor. It's been higher than Ingram's floor for sure. And I think the loss of Chase Claypool actually benefits Freiermuth because Claypool played 80% slot. So I think a lot more of those inside targets go to Pat Freiermuth. So I love Freiermuth this week, and there's nothing scary about the matchup. Jeremiah Owusu, no, wrong game. It was the Saints. Saints have some compromised defensive injuries, and they've been without a safety for a while, but I think that's the way we're going to go. We're going to go with Pat Freiermuth there. And Randy, non-PPR, Rondale Moore, MVS, or Tony. Tony played 7 snaps this week. I don't know how much that increases here. Rondale Moore, I don't think his targets change a whole lot. They're middle of the field. They're easy pitch catch type things. I think Colt McCoy can make those throws. So I would probably say Moore is the safest, but I think MVS is a boom bust guy. So if you want to risk floor for ceiling, low floor for some ceiling, I'd be MVS. But I would just go with the safety of Rondale Moore. I still imagine he gets 8-ish targets as he's been getting. I don't think that changes if Kyler doesn't play. And then Hopkins or CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's had a high floor. He hasn't had much of a ceiling. But if Murray's out, I would go with CeeDee Lamb there. Eric Stokes is out for the Packers, which, and it's not going to be Jair Alexander all day on CeeDee Lamb. Lamb plays the slot a lot. So I would go with Lamb. I think he has a comparable floor to Hopkins. But I think with Murray out, I think Lamb may actually have a little more ceiling there than he would. Odie, Hunt, DPJ, or Wandale. So Wandale's had 2 games where he's seen significant snaps. One's been decent. The other's been terrible. DPJ, 50-plus yards in 5 straight, 70 in 4 of those. And Hunt, it's a tough run defense. Miami's like a pass funnel defense. They're top 4 against the run, but they're easy to pass on. So I'm going to say Donovan Peoples-Jones there. And let's see what else we got here. Everybody on Insta here. There you go. We got Drew Bachman. Start Fields or Josh Allen. So that's going to be risk. It's going to be risk tolerance, right? So the Bears and the Lions game is weird because both teams could run on the other. Both teams could pass on the other. We're not sure what the game plans will come out and be, but Fields has run for 60 yards or more in 4 straight games, 3 of those being over 80. Whereas Josh Allen, look, Adam Schefter said, and we'll get something probably closer to kickoff, but Adam Schefter said that he's going to be active, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be the backup. Also, the downfield pass game is going to be there. I would personally say, though, if Josh Allen's in the lineup, I don't know how you sit him because he's still going to probably run. And because my guess is that wouldn't bother his throwing elbow. So, and then if they make him run more, then that puts him with Fields in terms of rushing upside. So, if you're very nervous about Allen getting pulled, though, then you start Fields and you say, okay, I'm gonna start him because I'm worried he gets pulled out. But if the word is that Allen's starting and the expectation will be you start, you're probably going to finish. I just don't see a world for sitting Josh Allen. But Fields is a very, very reasonable replacement. I mean, if somebody told me they were starting Fields over Allen, I wouldn't blink. I'd say, you know what, makes sense. But you would kick yourself if Josh Allen went off for 40 points and he was on your bench and Fields got you a 22. So that's all I'm thinking. Bean Productions, Lazard or Aaron Jones. So it's Lazard's matchup isn't very good here. Dallas is going to get a pass rush. Their outside corners are very good, and Lazard doesn't get a lot of separation. And I think the times he sees Trevon Diggs, I think that's a disadvantage for Lazard. Aaron Jones, we don't like his up and down usage in the offense, and even last week before he got hurt, it wasn't great. But I think Dallas, the place you attack them is on the ground. I can't really trust the Green Bay coach. You have to do the right thing. But I think Aaron Jones has a similar floor to Lazard, and I think in this game he has more ceiling because ultimately that's the way you attack Dallas. And Smooth Criminal, should you trade Chase for Andrews and Sutton? Well, Chase is hurt. Andrews is hurt. Sutton, we really don't know what we're getting out of it. They said Chase initially was 4 to 6 weeks. They didn't put him on IR because obviously if you give him back sooner, they don't want him not have him on the field. Andrews seems like a shorter term injury. So basically, if you're worried about Chase not being himself when he gets back, Andrews should be fine when he does get back. So I would probably I would think the Andrews injury is safer than the Chase injury, which would make me lean that way. But there's risks if Chase is back and he is back to where he was before last couple of games before he got hurt. He was playing at a better level. So there's that. But right now, I think Andrews is healthier than Chase. That might make me think about that. Instant question here. Randy, Ayuk, Palmer, or Pickens? You know what? Palmer's gotten a lot of targets, but this isn't a good matchup against the 49ers. 49ers are going to bring a lot of heat. And Ayuk is just a matter of if they target him enough, but there's nothing scary about his matchup at all. He's had 80 yards in 3 straight games. Ayuk is the best player here, and it's not close. And so I'm going to say that. Pickens is very risky because his quarterback is risky. I don't trust his quarterback at all. And so I'm going to say Ayuk here. All right, let's see. Lauren, Jim Cooperman, you've got need 2 in a PPR, Pittman, Slayton, Ayuk, Devontae Smith. So right now, at Slayton, I'd rule out because he could get it. He's the most likely of those 4 to get a 0 for you. And Kenny Golladay is supposed to be back. To me, that's an automatic Slayton. You're out of the lineup. If the report was that Galladay's going to see significant action, so that moves Slayton to the bench, I would think. And then Pittman, I just can't trust Sam Ehlinger right now. Pittman got 9 targets 2 weeks ago, but I just think that we just sucked the upside out of Pittman with this quarterback change. So I'm going to say Ayuk and Devontae Smith. So that would be the way I go there. And Cola Bear, would I roll with the Niners or Cardinals D? I do like the Cardinals D of we're going to see John Wolford at quarterback for sure. That definitely gives them an edge there. And they blitz a lot, which definitely is helpful. 49ers, they're going to give some problems, but Justin Herbert could probably find a way to get enough done to not make mistakes. I'd probably say Arizona if John Wolford's a quarterback. That's what it looks like it's going to be. Oh, I forgot to click on the question. All right, let's see. Fishtail. Sutton, Pickens, Pittman need to bench 1. I do think Sutton's at a good spot coming out of the bye. First time he's had a decent matchup in a while. I think he'll be okay there. So what I would say is Pittman probably has a better floor than Pickens. Pickens has a better ceiling than Pittman because they hit him on a downfield play that would work. So I would put Sutton in. And then your second one, I would say, if you want a floor play, it's Pittman. If you want a boom bust play, it's going to be Pickens. That'd be the way I go with that. And then you got one more, Fishtail. You got Najee, Sutton, Pickens, Pittman need to bench 1. So similar situation. I would go with Sutton and Pittman for my last one. It'd be Najee probably has a little better floor than Pickens. So I would make Najee the floor play, and then Pickens would be the boom bust if that's the route you want to go on that. Finally, the Seahawks got to play. Maybe they could score some points in the second half. They look terrible in the first half. And then we got a couple more instant questions. I'll come back to Twitter and YouTube. All right, we got Brissett or Cousins. So I think Cousins has a floor, and there's something useful for that. He's a floor play this week, but I don't think against Buffalo there's a lot of ceiling. I don't think he's going to have a big game. I know Buffalo has 2 safeties out, and they are all kinds of beat up, but Minnesota's been very inconsistent offensively. I think Brissett's your upside play this week because Miami, when they blitz, they often don't get home, and that's been a real strong suit for Brissett this year. Brissett has been really doing well, and teams don't get to blitz home, and the play action should work well. Miami's a good run defense, but they're terrible on the back end, and between Cooper playing well and Donovan Peoples-Jones playing well, Brissett's your boom bust guy, but he has upside. Cousins, if you want the safer points, there's always a chance that Brissett has the lemon game, whereas Cousins at least has a floor for you. That's how I would base that one. Foxborough News. I'm watching if Geno Smith gets another completion. Yay, team. All right. It's good. Brian Robinson, Edwards-Helaire, McKenzie, Kyron Williams, or Treylon Burks for a flex. So Brian Robinson, it seems like he seems to be getting like phased down a little bit. He's not getting anything important. They're not getting in the red zone a lot. He's not getting many red zone carries, and he's not in the receiving game. Edwards-Helaire, his snaps were like tiny. It's been a 3-week downturn. He's not getting any snaps at all. McKenzie, I think, is interesting because I think if Allen's elbow is hurt, then even if it's the game plan had to be short passing attack. So I think McKenzie could see 6 to 7 targets in this game, which would be very good for him. He hadn't been seeing enough targets lately. Kyron Williams is interesting. I do think that they're going to have to plug him in and use him right away because they're not happy with Darrell Henderson, and they're definitely not happy with Akers, who doesn't get anything done. So I think they need a boost from Williams. So I think Williams is interesting. McKenzie is always risky because ultimately he's a gadget type player. I know that they run him underneath, but he's really a gadget guy. And ultimately he has a lot of bad games because of that. So I think I would start Kyron Williams. I think he's going to get touches. I think he's going to get solid yardage. I think they're going to use him as a receiver. I think they're going to have to, but John Wolford is in a quarterback. And Treylon Burks is tough to trust because that passing game is kind of broken and he's missed so long. So that's the kind of way I'd go on that. I answered that one already. Dulcich or Schultz. So Dulcich is interesting because he's had 3 games. He had a long touchdown on a busted coverage against Carolina. There's a kind of a somewhat busted coverage against Jacksonville. He had a bigger play, but he's on the field. He's running routes. He's getting targets. I just think Schultz is really safe because we know Schultz is going to get his work. Dak loves going to him. So I think that Schultz has a higher floor, but I don't think Schultz has much of a ceiling. So if you want to risk a lower floor with Dulcich, I think Dulcich ultimately seems like a bigger play guy. He can do more with the ball in his hands than Schultz can. So I think Dulcich is your boom bust play, and Schultz is your floor play with a solid, totally. You get, but you're not probably getting a lot of upside with Schultz. All right. Next one, start to Mooney, Claypool, Thielen, and Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney had 7 snaps this week. I don't know how much that goes up this week. Sky Moore is still there. Christian Watson's still there. I know Hardman's out. I personally think Toney's going to be easing over a longer period of time. I don't think he's close to being fully integrated into the offense. And, it's not an easy offense to learn. So there's that. And I think it's going to take him a while. Thielen gets a 7 to 9 targets a game, so we like that. And Mooney's the lead receiver in the Bears, and this matchup is not scary. So I would leave Claypool to me is the least certainty of any because I know they forced him some targets last week, but it's like 2.2 average depth of target. So it's like literally getting the ball at the line of scrimmage, and to me, that's like low probability. I mean, for piling up yards. So that's not really going to be very useful there. So I'm going to go Mooney and Thielen on that one. Is it okay to drop Damian Harris? It depends. I imagine he'll be healthy at some point, especially coming out of their bye. I imagine he's not going to disappear from the game plan. He's going to see his double-digit touches, but a lot of us need running back depth. So if you don't need the running back depth, then that's how we have to frame this one. So, but if you need the depth, you're going to need to keep him for that reason. Herbert or Dillon? Dillon just hasn't been doing well. I mean, it's that simple. He has not been playing well. The offensive line is not getting much push for him, and it's making it very difficult for him to get rolling. So, you know what? Khalil Herbert, he only plays like 30% of the snaps, but he gets work. So I'm going to go with Herbert. Herbert is more likely to break a big play. Herbert might be able to do as much on 6 carries as Dillon might do on 15. 55-yard attempt for the Seahawks after a personal foul penalty. Put him back. Let's see if they make this thing. He's got this is straight. It looks like it's good. 55, and it's good. 14-3 Buccaneers. All right, let's see what we got here. Insta, half PPR, Daniel Jones or Rodgers. Yeah, it's a tough one there. Daniel Jones is always tough because they run him. It's fine. And Rodgers gets you like 240 and 2 touchdowns almost every week, regardless of who he plays. Most weeks he gets that. And there's a lot to be said for that floor. Daniel Jones are playing the Texans. The Texans are a team that gives up a ton on the ground, but they don't give up a lot in the air because teams don't have to throw on them. So to me, I'd say Rodgers has a higher floor here, and I don't think Jones has a great enough ceiling to say set bench the floor. All right, we got another one. Gordon, Hunt, or Dillon bench 1. I assume you mean Melvin Gordon here. Hunt has a really bad matchup. Miami's been a top 4 run defense this year, and Hunt hasn't been very good. He played a little bit better the game before the trade deadline, but he hasn't been good all year. Dillon hasn't been good either. Dallas is a team you run on. Gordon, who knows what his work's going to be? I mean, if Chase Edmonds knows the system already, it's a chance he goes in and takes work. So, Hunt might catch the ball. Dillon probably won't. So I would probably be most inclined to sit Gordon, who just has not looked good. I would probably sit Gordon, and I think there could be 3 men involved in the backfield, which makes it even worse for him. Martin, Justin Fields, or Tua? Wow, that's another good one. I think they both have similar upside here. Tua could have a big game against Cleveland. Cleveland had a great game before the bye against Cincinnati, but they haven't been that good. They haven't stopped the run or the pass this year, and I do think they have success through the air. So Tua has a lot of upside here. Justin Fields, the whole deal is you can run or pass on the Lions, and that's the whole point. Do the Bears get success on the ground? They don't need to pass the ball. And so I think ultimately Tua has a safer baseline than Fields this week. But because Fields has shown what he can do on the ground, he has elite upside in any week. I do think both games shoot out. I like both quarterbacks this week. I have them both targeted as DFS plays, so they're both there for me. I would tend to think that Tua's a little bit safer here, but I think ultimately Fields' running ability, he's going to run some, so I probably go with Fields. But it's flip a coin. If you have a feeling, a gut feel on it, you got to roll with it. All right, so we have another Insta question here. Henry, you have 2 tight ends, Waller and Dulcich. Should I drop Waller for Njoku? Njoku is going to be interesting because he has a high ankle sprain, and he's going to miss this weekend's game as well. And if he's not the same coming back from that ankle sprain, a lot of guys don't come back right from the high ankle sprains. Look at Jonathan Taylor. I mean, some do, but a lot don't. And that worries me. And so Waller hadn't been getting a lot of targets, but I think you're starting Dulcich every week, and I probably would keep Waller because there's a chance that they figure out that they need to get him the ball. But man, if you got a gut feel on it, go with that one. Njoku's been performing better than Waller, but again, that high ankle sprain coming back, that is my concern. That it's not going to be quite the same. Martin, the PPR, like Olave or Dameon Pierce. I do expect that the Giants come in and load the box and try to stop the run and force Davis Mills to beat them through the air. But Pierce has shown that he's been good regardless. Dameon Pierce has a rock-solid floor, which is really a big deal to have that floor. Whereas Olave, it's the Olave matchup, you can't count William Jackson, who's out because he's not even a part of their defense. They brought him. They got him in a trade. Ahkello Witherspoon's not a good corner. Minkah Fitzpatrick's out. There's going to be a pass because T.J. Watt is back. So I think that Olave's in a really good spot regardless, though, because with their poor cornerback play, I think Pittsburgh stops the run. So I think that they're going to have to throw. So I would lean slightly Chris Olave, as again, I think Dameon Pierce is going to see a lot of bodies in the box, and I think that might slow him down a bit. I don't think it's an upside game for Dameon Pierce here, based on the way the matchup sets itself up. Gustavo, Jamal Williams or Jeff Wilson? Yeah, good question. So they both should have a solid workload. Both have good matchups. I think Wilson is more likely to see all of the red zone work. Last week, Mostert got a touchdown. I think the more they get into it, Wilson's going to be more the goal line guy than the smaller Raheem Mostert. Williams has been a big factor to goal. We don't know how much Swift is going to play. They both can be involved in the receiving game. Wilson caught a touchdown last week. So, I think both games shoot out, but there is a world where I think that Miami is more likely than Detroit to play with the lead and use the run more in the second half. So that could be a 52 to 48% edge for Jeff Wilson, but it is a coin flip. PNLB, Higbee or Kmet. You know what? Higbee hasn't done anything in 3 weeks. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I just did a report my thread during the middle of the week. I don't know that he has 30 yards over the last 3 games, so it's just not been good. So I'm going to say, Kmet's going right now, and it's an easy matchup. So I'm going to say we're going to go Cole Kmet there, and I'm not going to blink because Higbee hasn't been good in 4 weeks. Jason, all right. You need a flex, Hunt, Wandale, Christian Watson, or Dontrell Hilliard. So Hunt does not have a good matchup, but he should potentially be involved in the receiving game, which would help him a bit here. Wandale has been very iffy. He had 2 games with significant snaps. One, he was decent. The other, he just was not good at all. Christian Watson, I don't know that I could trust much of anything. And Dallas's outside corners, that would be a mismatch against him, I think. And then Hilliard, it's just you're hoping to get some change of pace carries that might help him out. So I think ultimately you're looking at your first 2 options between Hunt and Wandale. I don't know that Wandale has a ton of upside. I think that you can run on Houston. They may not have to throw. So I think ultimately Kareem Hunt's going to see maybe 4 targets in this game. And I think that gives him a little bit of the edge there in that one. All right. Caught up on Insta. All right, Laura and Jim Cooperman, you've got need 2 in a PPR, Pittman, Slayton, Landry, Ayuk, and Devontae Smith. I think with Kenny Golladay back this week, I think Slayton gets moved back to mostly bench time. I don't think he sees a lot of field time. Landry's been really he's out so long with the injury. I don't know if we're able to trust on him. He might be rusty, and he's older coming back from an injury. Devontae Smith, I know, hasn't done much, but there's nothing scary about the Washington matchup. And Washington's pretty physical up front, so I think they may need to throw a little more this week. So I think Devontae Smith's a solid play there. And I'll probably go with Pitt, even though I don't like Sam Ehlinger, and I think, Ayuk in there. Ayuk gets easy. We'll go Ayuk second because Ayuk had 80 yards in 3 straight games, and I still think that with McCaffrey, they're not going to run all day, but their passes are easier now with him. So I'm going to go with Devontae Smith and Ayuk in this one. You're finally able to make a live chat. I'm glad you're here. That's awesome. Thanks. Come on, Claypool or Pickens. They did force in 6 targets to Claypool, and he only played limited snaps last week, so that was good for him. But Pickens is still his quarterback's not very good, but he gets targets. And he's an outside receiver, and Marshawn Lattimore's out. Lattimore's the best stylistic fit on New Orleans for Pickens. I would be inclined to go with Pickens over Claypool because Claypool's depth of target was 2.2 yards last week, so they were just using him at the line of scrimmage for the most part, and that is not like one toward big fantasy production, whereas at least Pickens, we know, gets the ball downfield a bit. Got an instant question, PNLB, Monty or Jeff Wilson? You know what? As much as I love Jeff Wilson, Montgomery does still play 70% of the snaps. There's 1 game out of the last 4 he didn't. So I think ultimately we like that idea where he's going to see his 70% snaps and he's going to do a lot with those. The matchup with Detroit is a great one. And there's a lot of ways this Bears-Lions game could go, but I think Montgomery's going to be the part of the game plan that's going to be like an important one. So I would go with Montgomery there. Do the Rams running backs have any value today? Akers, none. And then we have Darrell Henderson, who, based on the way you use him, I know Coach McVay doesn't like him. He's trying to get him replaced. Kyren Williams is interesting to me. I have 14-team leagues, all right? So Kyren Williams is interesting for me. So I'm going to start him in some leagues. So, oh, wow, Tom Brady was out as a wide receiver. They had, and I can't even see who it was, somebody else threw the ball and threw an interception. So Seattle has a chance to get back in this game down 14-3. Wow, ridiculously bad throw. So I'd go Montgomery in that one. And the Rams running backs, Kyren Williams is one. But again, if you're in a 10-team league, I don't think you're doing that. If you're in a 12-team league, depending on what your needs are, to go in and say that he automatically, Kyren Williams is going to come in and have a big game. I made a bold prediction on SiriusXM this morning. Bold prediction was he gets 70 yards with a chance for a touchdown. But can I prove that or quantify it? That's going to be a tough one. So but I do think he has some value there. All right, Swift or Williams? Yeah, I'm getting a lot of that one. So I think I'm basically going to say this. You want the floor play, it's Williams. Williams has a safe, solid floor. You know you're getting close to double-digit fantasy points. So you're in good shape there. And Swift is going to probably see 30 snaps, but he is so good for what he can do when he gets the ball. He could literally get a 70-yard touchdown for you. So Swift is boom bust. Williams is safe, and you got to make your lineup decision based on if you want safe or if you want risk. All right, not the silent majority one, Ingram or Higbee. So Ingram underperformed last week because he suffered a back injury during the game, but apparently the back injury is not an issue now. Higbee has done nothing in the last 3 games. They were throwing him a lot of screens earlier in the year, and they've moved away from that in their game planning. And I don't have any reason to think that that is coming back. So I have to go with Evan Ingram because, again, last week's bad game can be explained away. He is a regular part of that offense, so I would go with that. B. Alley, Claypool, or Hunt? Again, Claypool did get 6 targets and limited snaps, but they all were really short. But Hunt is that's a tough one because Hunt has a really bad matchup against Miami. Miami's been like lights out against the run. Hunt has not been good. He played well before the trade deadline in the one game, but he has not been good this year. You know what? I don't know that Hunt has a lot of upside here. I'm going to go with Claypool. I think Claypool is going to continue to see targets. And if he sees that 6 targets, I was like 30% of the snaps. He got 6 targets. So regardless, I'm going to go that way. Got an instant question. We got Hopkins or Pittman. I'm still going to go Hopkins, even if Colt McCoy Colt McCoy is a professional quarterback. And what I mean by that is if you have a really good receiver, you got Hopkins, you've got Zach Ertz, he could get the ball to them. I'm not concerned at all about him making the quick throws to them. Pittman is so limited by Sam Ehlinger. We know Pittman had 9 targets 2 weeks ago, and we thought that was great, and it was. But ultimately, Hopkins is the focal point of the offense, and he's going to continue to see that. And Pittman just has more downside than Hopkins right now, which is why I'm going there. But, yeah, Sam Ehlinger is kind of taking the gas out of it. And I know the Raiders are without Nate Hobbs, their cornerback, but it's just so hard to trust Ehlinger right now. But I trust Colt McCoy more. Wow, I believe I said that, but I do. Johnny Surfer, need one for the flex. DeAndre Carter, Henderson, Pacheco, or Jaylen Warren. So I expect the 49ers to get a significant lead in this game against the Chargers, and I think that Justin Herbert's going to have to throw quite a bit. And I think DeAndre Carter is a candidate for 5 to 9 targets. And I think that gives him something there. Darrell Henderson, I am very concerned that we are going to see Kyren Williams step in and get every opportunity to do something here. So I'm a little bit nervous about Henderson. Pacheco always gets me nervous too because his carries are usually really low. And I don't know that it's a blowout Chiefs game like a lot of people think because they're coming off that physical beating they took against Titans last week. And I think that's not easy. I think they're going to come in and they're going to struggle in the first half. So I think this game is not going to be necessarily one where they're playing with a lead the whole way. So I am going to say that – the question just popped up. Let me see. And Jaylen Warren, we keep hearing he's going to get more work. But New Orleans – and I know Baltimore ran it down their throats. Baltimore is a much better blocking line than Pittsburgh does. I don't like to run against a top 10 run defense. I'm going to go with DeAndre Carter here. Smooth Criminal, you're welcome. And if you guys are anybody if you're on YouTube, hit the like button, please. I'd appreciate it so greatly. If anybody wants 2 days behind the paywall of RotoWire, you can see it on the screen on Instagram and on YouTube and Twitter, I should say. RotoWire.com/try. 2 days. You don't even need a credit card. No scam. Just email address. Adam, Herbert versus the 49ers, Daniel Jones. I'm still going to go with Justin Herbert here. I think that Daniel Jones is in a situation where the Texans are the worst run defense in the league. And I believe they can run the ball, control the game, play with the lead, and not have to have Daniel Jones throw much. Justin Herbert's going to have to throw. And I know the 49ers are a good defense, but their cornerbacks aren't their strength. Charvarius Ward's good, but the other ones, the other corners are not a strength. So I think overall, this can work out for them. So I think Justin Herbert's going to get enough volume to be safer than Daniel Jones. And then Midway Barker, you lost Murray and you need Brissett. I do like Jacoby Brissett. There's downside with all 3 of these quarterbacks, and you obviously know that when you ask this question. But Miami doesn't blitz as much as they did earlier in the season, but they still blitz enough, and that blitz doesn't often get home. And Brissett has been very good against blitzes that haven't gotten home this year. The offensive line is great in Cleveland. It tells me that blitz isn't going to get home. And Nick Chubb is going to get his, but Miami's a great run defense. Play action is going to work really well here. So the process of Brissett's a strong one. Goff playing in the cold weather, not so great. Dalton, I think Dalton is not – with TJ Watt back, he's going to be under pressure. We saw against Baltimore. You get him under pressure and not so good, right? So I think that's what we're looking at. I would go that route. And I got one more instant question. Moore or D. Johnson at the flex? I assume you mean Deontay Johnson. I assume you mean Rondale Moore. Neither have a whole ton of upside, I think, because Colt McCoy's going to be a quarterback. But I think Moore continues to see his 8-ish targets a game, and defenses aren't going to focus on him as much as DeAndre Hopkins on the outside. I think he has a higher ceiling than Deontay Johnson. And again, the floors, I think, are somewhat similar. So I am going to go with Rondale Moore, who's getting at least 8 targets in the majority of his last 4 games. Robert, all right, man, good to see you. Jeff Wilson or Khalil Herbert? I got to go Wilson here. Herbert's still playing 30% of the snaps here. One game he had a 70, but it's like he's playing 30% of the snaps. King Love, put your question in again, man. I'll see it. I'm not going to be able to scroll back up. And so I'm going to go with Jeff Wilson because I think Wilson's going to have a firm workload. He outsnapped Mostert last week, as I predicted on XM, and he's going to continue to outsnap him. And it's a good matchup against Cleveland. So I'm going to go with Wilson. I'm going to feel pretty good about that. Yeah, Seahawks are looking rough. They're starting to perk up a little bit. They look better. They really had. I'm sure Pete Carroll got on them at halftime because they came out flat. They totally came out flat. And if I miss anybody's question, just repost it at any point in time. I'm always glad to do it. Like I said, give me a little bit. But yeah, if you're on Instagram, I think Instagram have caught up. So yeah, if you missed your question on Instagram, I should say post. If you're on YouTube and Twitter, I'll definitely get yours. I scroll through. All right, Lauren, Jim, you're welcome. Follow up, Flex, Pittman, Landry, or Jalen. Again, it's Jalen Warren. I don't like his matchup. I don't like Jalen Warren's matchup. It's not a great matchup against the Saints. Again, I mentioned a couple minutes ago that the Ravens are much better offensive blocking for the run than the Steelers are. And Landry, I'm worried about rust coming back from a really long layoff. He's an older player at this point. So I'm going to say Pittman has enough volume to be your best play of this group. And all right, let's see. King Love, you got Schultz, Everett, or Ingram. I don't like Everett this week because I think a lot of Fred Warner time on him. Man, Fred Warner is like a lockdown. Schultz has a really high floor. We know that Dak Prescott loves him. And there's a lot of injuries on the Packers defense, especially the Devondre Campbell injury. So I think Schultz has a high floor. And I think his floor is higher than Evan Ingram's. So because of his floor being higher, I'm going to go there. But Everett, I just don't like the matchup for Everett because Fred Warner is significantly better as a player, and he could put the complete lockdown on him. Delroy, Pittman, Samuel, Peoples-Jones. Peoples-Jones has been rock solid for the last 5 games, at least 50 yards, and I'm sorry, all 5 of the last 5 games. And at 4 he's been 70 yards. So he's been so consistent. And Miami has a bad secondary, and with play action, you can really attack them there. So Peoples-Jones, to me, has the strongest floor of them all. Samuel's matchup again isn't great. The matchup against Philly is a tough one. Can they manufacture him something? Yes, but I think Peoples-Jones is in a better spot. And then Pittman's just tough because Ellinger really has sucked the life out of the offense. So I think Peoples-Jones is a higher floor than Pittman at this point because of the last 5 games proving that. I'm going to go with Peoples-Jones there because I don't think Ellinger can elevate Pittman to a ceiling. All right, we got Joe Grind. You got Allen or Brissett. So, all right, if you've got Josh Allen, and I should see it's not time. It's not an hour and a half before kickoff. Let's see if there are any reports on inactives or anything. But so what I'll tell you is this. If you have Josh Allen, he still could get you the 40 points, right? He could run for 100. If his elbow keeps him from throwing deep, we totally could see him running the ball. And the underneath pass game, Minnesota's not going to be able to stop that. They got Diggs can get open underneath, no problem. Anywhere you can get open, right? And then you got Shakir, and you've got I'm looking at the game. I'm sorry about the Ken Walker on the screen there. And Isaiah McKenzie. And even if they use Hines out of the backfield. So honestly, Allen is way safer than Brissett. I like Brissett this week. But with Josh Allen, I think sometimes we just risk the idea of getting too cute. And I think that's going to cross that line. If Josh Allen's on the field and he says he's starting, you'll kick yourself if he got 35 points and Brissett got you 18, right? So I just think because of that, you go there. And then David, you got a question. Jeff Wilson or Gabe? I'm going to go with Jeff Wilson. I believe this is my narrative, all right? My narrative is this. Josh Allen has an elbow injury. The one thing you take out of the game plan, you are not going to plan out a deep passing game. You are going to say, you know what? It's going to be short. Last year we proved that they could take the underneath stuff and they could work underneath and be successful. They can do that in that offense. I think they need to keep Josh Allen's elbow intact. That gets rid of the downfield. But that's my take. And that's where Gabe Davis lives. He hasn't lived underneath this year. So I'm going to go with Jeff Wilson there. All right, Chad. You got the Bears logo there. I see. Nice. Good morning. Josh Palmer or Rondale Moore? Now, that's an interesting one. That's a very interesting one. I like that. DK Metcalf had an end zone target. All right. So Josh Palmer has like 22 targets in the last 2 weeks, and they're going to need him a lot here. 49ers are going to lead, and it's not a thing where Josh Palmer is a player where they're going to say Charvarius Ward, you're going to travel, and that's not happening. So he's going to have opportunity in a game they're trailing. I like Rondale Moore today. I do like Rondale Moore, but I think Josh Palmer is going to get a lot of targets, and I think they're going to be better targets from Justin Herbert than the Cole McCoy targets to Rondale Moore, and that's why I'm going to go that route. And let's see what they're Geno Smith. Come on, Geno, do something here. He took a sack. That's what he did, and he fumbled the ball. Wow, that was a terrible choice. Instead of tucking the ball, he was like 5 yards behind the line, and he started sticking it out. I don't know if he wanted to gain extra half a yard on the sack, but he lost the ball. Way to go, Geno. All right, Sideshow Mill. Russell Kyler, I think, is out. The odds of him playing are small, and if his hamstring is as bad as it sounds, then I'm not using him. I'm going to go Russell Wilson there. And then I got another instant question. Devontae Adams, I mean, they threw him the ball a ton in the first half last week, and then they went away from him. But, I mean, they really don't have any other options. They got to throw it to him. And Indy's a great run defense, so you got to pass. So my guess is Adams gets – I like him on the prop and the betting over. He's only 82 yards. He's really low. He should go over 100 yards this week. Iron Eddie, D-Hop or Sanders. Washington's a good run defense. Now, Cole Holcomb is out. Their linebacker, that kind of gives them a ding. But I still think DeAndre Hopkins is going to see a typical target share. Cole McCoy is a professional quarterback. He can get him the ball. So I think that's not going to be a big limitation. I think DeAndre Hopkins has a higher floor than Sanders does in full PPR. If this was standard, it'd be a different answer. But I think with a full PPR, Hopkins has a much higher floor. So I'd go that route. I got another Gabe Davis, Brandon Cooks, or Wan'Dale Robinson. I'm worried about Cooks. I mean, they took his captain title away. He's supposed to play, but there's a lot of acrimony there. And so I think Cooks has a lot of risk. I think him not being happy, I could see him playing half-hearted. Gabe Davis, I don't like because my personal narrative is that they're not going to have Josh Allen throwing downfield. But Wan'Dale Robinson's tricky. He's had 2 games of snaps. One's been good. One's been terrible. So I guess when we put it that way, the best player in this group right now is probably Gabe Davis. So I would give Gabe Davis a slight lean over those 2 options. Let me see these questions flying up here. Hang on. All right, let's see. All right, we got the next one. We got Treylon Burks. Give me the answer. I think the overall offense in Tennessee is kind of broken right now. So I look, they're about physical defense. They're about the run. And I don't think that's changing. And I don't think Ryan Tannehill, and I know he's done a lot of good things in the last few years. I don't think he's playing at his best level right now. So I don't think he's their answer at wide receiver. I think they're just going to game plan specific, mix and match. A little Robert Woods once in a while here, some Treylon Burks here and there, some Austin Hooper on occasion. But I don't think it's going to be a high-volume passing game. I think they know what they are, and they kind of got to live there. Jacob, 10-man half PPR. Would it be a good idea to stash Gus and Dobbins this week, or should you avoid the Ravens running and stash Wan'Dale, Tony? I would rather stash the Ravens backs than any of those 3 options. Wan'Dale may be really good. He may be really good. I would stash Gus. You know what? I would stash Gus. He would be the one I stash. That's the one. That's what I would do there. And because Dobbins, I don't know that he's going to be healthy this year. The fact he came back from the ACL, they were very slow about his return, and then he got shut down pretty quickly after that. I think Gus and Wan'Dale would be your 2. Tony, I don't think he's going to get enough consistent snaps. And Pacheco, they don't give him enough rushing attempts. Robert, need to sit 1. Davis, Peoples-Jones, or Palmer? Peoples-Jones has had a really, really high floor, and I love the matchup this week. And Josh Palmer is going to see a ton. I would sit Gabe Davis here. I don't think there's going to be a downfield passing attack here. Devontae Smith or Josh Palmer? Yeah, Palmer's going to get targets for sure. I do think that Washington Commanders stuffed the run a bit for Philly. And I think Philly's got to go to the air a little bit more. And I think they have a big advantage there. I feel like Devontae Smith has a higher ceiling than Josh Palmer, but Palmer has a higher floor. So if you need a safe 10 PPR points, that's going to be Josh Palmer because they're probably going to throw a lot. But if you need a 20-point game out of your receiver, I think Devontae Smith has a much better chance of hitting that than Palmer, but he has a lower floor. We've seen that in the last few weeks. Let's see if there's any other questions on Insta here. All right. Randy, Josh Allen is officially active. Yeah, and he's going to be active. He was always going to be active because they didn't promote Matt Barkley. So the question that Adam Schefter brought up at 2 a.m. this morning was he could be active, but he may not be the starter. So I don't know what we're finding out there. If we know for sure he's not starting, then to answer your next question, it would probably be Colt McCoy, I would think. It's still a tough one, though. You know what? Maybe rethink it. I wonder if I'm still on here. I rethink it. Maybe Keenum. He has weapons. And I think that the passing game was probably developed during the week for the game plan to have underneath stuff going. And I believe that underneath stuff had a lot to do with McKenzie and Nyheim Hines and Steph Diggs. So, I'm going to go Keenum there. I'm going to go Keenum. All right. I think I answered that one already. All right. Terry, I assume you mean McLaurin, Gabe Davis, or Pittman. Pittman probably has the best floor of the trio. I don't know that he has a lot of upside, but I think he has the best floor of the group. But Terry McLaurin is a bad matchup at the corners. Now, he's gotten it done in bad matchups, so I think he may have, he's a boom-bust guy because he could be held to one catch for 30 yards or even 20 yards, but he also can get 4 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. But I think there's a low floor. So Pittman's safest, and Terry McLaurin's your boom-bust. And that's the silent majority. Man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm glad you were here. Glad you made it here. Bialy, Claypool, or Kyron Williams. So, yeah, it's speculative versus speculative, right? Now, Claypool got 4 some targets last week, so I think we can at least say that 6 targets on 30% of the snaps. I think we could say we get that again. I think we could say that. So, I think Claypool is a safer floor. I don't know how much of a ceiling he is. They had 2.2 yards per target last week. That doesn't look like ceiling play. Kyron Williams is very speculative. I like him this week. I think he has a chance to do really well. But do I know for sure they're going to put him ahead of Darrell Henderson and Cam Akers? I can't 100% qualify that. I think they will. So I think your safe play is Claypool. But I think if you want to risk boom bust, I think that would be Kyron Williams. He could come in. I think he could actually do something. I think he has enough explosive to make something happen here. All right, let's see what else we got here. Najee Harris or A.J. Dillon? Yeah, I'd probably go with A.J. Dillon here. Dallas is easier to run on than New Orleans is. I know Baltimore ran on them, but Baltimore's much better run blocking than the Steelers have. Randog, Swift or Pierce? I do think that Giants are going to try to stack the box, but I think Pierce gets enough done. Pierce has a great floor every week. They get him the ball. Swift, I just don't know how many snaps he's going to get. I know he's off the injury report. Doesn't matter. 30 snaps. He did it last week. Took him off the injury report. 30 snaps in the last 2 games. I think they know that they can't keep him on the field if he doesn't, he gets so much work, he gets hurt. Pierce is way safer. And I don't know how much more upside Swift has because Pierce could have a big game. I'd say Pierce on that. All right. Let's see what we got here. Next one. Morning. Game script Cowboys Packers. So realistically, the Packers are going to need to run the ball because that's how you attack Dallas. You attack them on the ground. You're not going to have a lot of success through the air. You don't want that pass rush coming after you. So there's that. Dallas, on the other hand, it's kind of the same. You run on Green Bay. Now, they're without Eric Stokes. They're without Devondre Campbell. And I think Dallas could be more balanced coming in here. I think Dallas is more likely to get a lead, though. And if Dallas gets a lead, that's going to force Green Bay to throw the ball. So we got to think about that. So I think overall, I think this is a moderate scoring game. I don't think it's a shootout. I don't think it's a low scoring game. I think this is in the 20s. This game goes into the 20s. And the passing yards, Rodgers is going to struggle to get to 235 in this game. The outside corner is going to be problematic for him. Dobbs being out hurts them. I know he wasn't doing great, but he was a presence for them out there. And I don't know if Lazard's going to get separation. So I think Rodgers goes under that. But Prescott, I think they use a lot of play action here. And I think they have opportunities here in the passing game. So I'm going to say Dak over and Rodgers under that. And then Joe wants to know starting Aaron Jones. Yeah, his ankle's fine. So, and Dallas is a running matchup to attack. So I think we go that route. All right, then you got Rob. Let's see. Kyren Williams question, half PPR and need two. Wilson, Herbert, or Kyren? Well, at this point, Wilson is way safer than Kyren. Herbert is moderately safer than Kyren. And Herbert's showing the ability to make some big runs, and it's a great matchup against Detroit. I would, since you have two good options, I would sit Kyren until I see him play a game before making a further decision on that. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate the comment, the analysis. And then Pittman, Gabe Davis, Landry, or Kyren. You know, Pittman's going to have a floor. And then these players you got, I think the floor is important. Ellinger sucks the upside out of him, but there's a floor there still. And of these players, even though I don't like Gabe Davis or upside, I think there might be a floor here. Minnesota's not good against the pass. And even if Davis isn't downfield all day, I think he gets 5 targets here. Landry's tough to predict coming back from a long injury, and a guy at, I believe, over 30. Like I said with Kyren. So here's what I'd tell you for sure. Pittman in, and then if you want to go a little boom bust, then I think you're looking at Kyren Williams. If you want to go with a moderate floor, it's not a high floor, but a moderate floor, then it's Gabe Davis. Sorry, I got an itch. My nose. Sorry about that. Ralph, all right. You need 2. Mooney, Herbert, Thielen, Rondale. No worry, or do you play Herbert over Swift? Wouldn't play because Herbert's going to play as many snaps as Swift. Now I think the better player. I think Swift in that scenario. I love Mooney this week. Mooney's been playing well, and he has a great matchup here. So I definitely like Mooney here. Now, Thielen, he's getting the targets, but he lately hasn't been getting things done. I think Rondale's going to see his usual targets, but I think he's pretty similar to Thielen here. So what I'm going to say is Mooney, and then Swift over Herbert. And I would probably say Thielen here. I still say Thielen here because I do think Buffalo having the 2 injuries at safety, both there. So Mike Guy's been out forever and Poyer's out. I think the middle of the field helps Thielen a bit. I'd go with Thielen there. Kirk or Josh Palmer? Yeah, it's tough one. Palmer got a lot of targets the last 2 weeks. Probably gets a lot of targets here today. Christian Kirk, we never know quite what we're getting out of him. We know there's some upside. But you're playing Kansas City, right? And I would think that they're going to, at some point, they're going to trail. At some point, they're going to have to throw. So both teams are in the same scenario. I would say this. I think Palmer actually has a higher floor than Kirk because he's going to probably get 10 targets, but I don't know he does a lot with them. So the floor is nice. I think if you got to risk a lower floor for a higher ceiling, that's going to be Kirk. That's the way I would go on that one. And DT, Hopkins, I got to go Hopkins because he has at least a similar floor to what Pittman has. And I think Hopkins, even with Colt McCoy, probably has a little more upside. Colt McCoy is a professional quarterback. You can get him the ball. So there's that. Morning, Trey. Judy or Josh Palmer? Yeah, good luck to you as well. Judy had 3 good games before the bye. Now, 2 of those had to do with Courtland Sutton having bad matchups. I think they kind of went away from him. Palmer's going to get probably more targets here. Judy's the better player. And that's where we have the disconnect, right? The fact that Judy had 3 straight good games makes me still wonder, even though they don't throw the ball as much, they might be able to build on it. They're just going to coming off a bye. Ultimately, though, I think Palmer has a better floor. I think Judy has a higher ceiling. So if you want the floor play, I think that you go with Palmer. If you want to risk a little less floor for a little more ceiling, then I go with Jerry Judy. Joe Grind, bench 1, Montgomery, Rondale Moore down. I'd bench Rondale Moore here with the backup quarterback. Montgomery has a great matchup. If he doesn't get it done, there's everything substantiates good game for Montgomery. Peoples-Jones has gotten it done 5 straight weeks. And so I think based on those, we go with the players and the good situations because both have good matchups and they kind of had things going their way lately. Wow, it looks like Tampa's going to blow out the Seahawks 21-3. All right, so that's the route I go on there. Ran Swift or Pierce. So I'm going to say Pierce here because Pierce has been getting it done most weeks. Swift's been playing about 30 snaps. Pierce has a high enough floor to make us be excited about that. That's the route I would go with that. Tua or Fields. Yeah, I had this one earlier. This is a tough one. The Bears-Lions game is going to be interesting because either team, they could run the ball on the opponent, they could pass the ball on the opponent. Both teams' running backs could go off, and they might not throw the ball. But they could choose to throw the ball, and both offenses could go off that way. The Tua game, they're going to throw. So Tua, I believe, has a safer baseline here. Fields has a lot more volatility. So if you want a safer option, it's going to get you a solid amount of points, you go with Tua. But if you want to risk a little less floor for a bigger upside, then I think you're going to look at Justin Fields as your way to go. Brian, oh, you're welcome. Good. I'm glad you got to win. Excellent, excellent. And Chad, you're welcome as well. I think Seattle abandoned Walker because A, he wasn't getting much done early in the game, and B, they fell behind. And then they panicked. They goofed. They panicked. All right. ETN, Pollard, or Swift. You know, ETN has 28 and 24 carries in the last 2 weeks. His work, and he's been great. He has been great the last 4 weeks. So I think ETN's floor is higher than your other two options, and I think his ceiling is similar. I got to say ETN here. He is their lead guy, and I don't care if they're playing Kansas City. I think the game stays closer than people think. And I think if they trail him, maybe he'll see some targets. He hasn't been getting targets. I want to say that. Cousins or Carr, yeah, ick, right? Raiders are playing the Colts. The Colts are easier to pass on than the run on. There's that. And Buffalo has injuries. Still overall, they're going to get a pass rush on Cousins, and Cousins struggles in his pass rush on him. 52 to 48% Carr. That would be it, because I do think ultimately they're going to have to throw on Indianapolis. They're at home too, which helps, whereas Minnesota's on the road. I'd give the slight edge to Carr. If you have a gut feel, go with it. Curtis Samuel or Rondale Moore. I'm going to go Curtis Samuel there. Avonte Maddox, the slot corner, is out for Philadelphia. Should open the middle of the field up a little bit. Another instant question. Zeke expected to sit. Jalen Warren, or I go Kyron Williams. Jalen Warren, I don't like the matchup against New Orleans. I know last week Baltimore ran him, but Baltimore's run blocking is way better than Pittsburgh's. Still don't know how much work Warren's going to get. Kyron Williams is a wild card, but I think they're excited to get him on the field, and I think they need something out of their running game. They haven't gotten it. So I think his opportunity is where they're going to try to get things going. They're going to throw him the ball too, and that gives him the upper hand, I think. Delroy, I almost caught up here. Half PPR, DeAndre Carter, Jamal Williams, or Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think Jamal Williams has the safest floor of them all, and he has a really good opportunity because they get near the goal line, he could score. So I'm going to say Jamal Williams. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones too. It's real close with them. I put Carter as a distant number 3, but Christopher, thank you, man. You have a good weekend too. So I definitely would go with Jamal Williams because he has such a good floor and he has ceiling. Joe, you're welcome. And but Donovan Peoples-Jones is close for sure. Bubba Gump, Davis, Singletary, or Dulcich. Overall, not super excited about Davis because I think when they game planned, it had to be with Allen's elbow in question, which means they probably didn't want to throw downfield much. And so that kind of changes the equation there. So see if Brandon Cooks is available. Brandon Cooks is back in the lineup, by the way. So Singletary, it's not a good matchup for him. Not a good matchup at all. This is a lights-out defense against the run, so I don't like that. Dulcich, we have the 3 games, a couple busted coverages, made his numbers look better than they are. So I think that said, I still think Dulcich sees the most targets between he and Gabe Davis. So I think Dulcich is your floor play. I'm going to go with Dulcich because I still am nervous that the offense for this game for the Bills was set around a short passing attack. And I think that kind of rules out Gabe Davis. KJ, Cousins or Goff. That's going to sound stupid, but I don't like Jared Goff in cold weather. Don't like him in cold weather. Kirk Cousins, though, he's on the road against Buffalo, right? I think that there's a higher likelihood that the game in Chicago shoots out. Cousins has a higher floor. I do think Goff has a higher ceiling because if this game shoots out and they throw the ball, you could attack Chicago through the air, and they don't get a pass rush at all, which that's huge for Jared Goff. So I'm going to say Cousins is your floor play, get you about 12 to 14 points baseline, but I don't think there's a lot of upside for him here. If you need to go boom bust, then you go Goff. Joe, Zay Jones or Mac Hollins? I'm going to say Zay Jones here. Mac Hollins had a one big game in week 3, but otherwise his yard has been very sketchy. And his role doesn't change. He plays every snap. And so with Waller and Renfrow out, it does not impact his role at all. Zay Jones hasn't been very good, but they're playing Kansas City, and they're probably going to have to throw. So I think he gets more targets, and I think he has a decent chance of scoring here. Hendo, yeah. Man, McVay's been trying to ice out Henderson all season. You could tell by the way he uses them. So there's that. Hendo's safer because we don't know what we're getting out of Kyren Williams. I'm personally starting Williams, but he's not safer because we don't know. We have no idea. And that's the biggest question, right? So I think Henderson is going to get you at least 5 to 7 carries, maybe at most. Maybe he gets you 5 to 7 carries. Maybe an upside scenario is 10. Not getting much done elsewhere. I think Williams is going to be using the receiving role at the very least, if not in a running role. Personally, I start Williams. Henderson's probably safer until we see Williams on the field. And I'm going to sign off on Insta here. Thanks, everyone, for coming in. All right. There we go. And all right, let's get back to all right. Jay. Start 2, Jamal, Jeff Wilson, and Peoples-Jones. Got to watch the Ken Walker screen pass here as the Seahawks try to make a improbable comeback down 21-3. Jamal Williams has a great floor, good ceiling. Jeff Wilson. So I think you got to start Jamal Williams. I mean, his role isn't going to change a whole lot. Even if Swift is playing, which he is, it's not going to make a difference there. He's going to, split the work. And the Bears are not a defense to worry about that will scare me at all. Now, Wilson and Peoples-Jones. Peoples-Jones has at least 50 yards and last 5 games, 70 yards in 4 of those games. So that's what we're up against here. I think Wilson's a strong play. He's going to probably get close to 12 to 15 carries. So there's that. I probably go with the running backs. I mean, I love I love them all. Jamal Williams, and then I probably go with Wilson. Peoples-Jones is interesting. I don't have a definitive third on him. I would go with Wilson, but if you got a gut feel on Peoples-Jones, go with it. Thanks, Jay. You're welcome, Rob. Thank you. Come on, Geno Smith. Touchdown, finally. Maybe they can get a backdoor cover. Only 2.5 line. All right. Thank you, J-Rad. Brian, sit 2 out of these 5. Davis, Sutton, Gallup, Lazard, and Tony. Tony had 7 snaps last week. I don't know that number's going up much, so I'm sitting Tony. And Michael Gallup is probably going to see quite a bit of Jair Alexander at least half of the time, and that makes me say he hasn't done much at this point. I would sit those guys. I think Davis, Sutton, and Lazard get more targets. Hey, Scott, good to see you, man. Schultz or Pittman? I think Schultz, believe it or not, has a higher floor than Pittman here. We know Prescott's going to throw him the ball. They have that comfort level between them. He always looks for him in the middle of the field. Green Bay, there was out Rashawn Gary, Devondre Campbell, so their pass rush is going to hurt a little bit. So that's problematic. But I still think Schultz is going to get plenty of work in the middle of the field. Pittman, Ellinger sucks all his upside out. So there's a problem with that. We see they get the 2-point conversion. Intercepted on it. Sorry about that. I think Schultz is safer than Pittman. So I'm going to go with Schultz right there. He's going to probably get 8 targets in this game. Judy or Mooney? I have a likelihood to go to Mooney here. There's nothing scary about the Detroit matchup. They don't get pressure. So the Bears pass blocking line isn't going to be tested here. So I definitely think Mooney is a better play. Judy had 3 good games before the bye, but Cortland Sutton had 2 bad matchups. And something they went away from him a bit. And so ultimately in Tennessee, they're down like 5 defenders, which is important here. But that means they might be able to run the ball too. I'm going to go with Mooney. here. I think Mooney is going to see in all probability, more targets than Judy. And that's what I'd go with there. Singletary or Thielen. Minnesota's a nightmare to run against. Thielen should have room in the middle of the field. Jordan Poyer's out, safety, and we already know Micah Hyde's been out for a while there. I'm going to go with Thielen there. He gets 7 to 9 targets a game. Singletary, if Allen's elbow is hurt, I think the defense could compress in a bit and see if they want to test that elbow out. I'd go with Thielen there. Delroy, if Zeke don't play, any options you can think of? I have no idea what your waiver wire is. Kyron Williams is somebody you could consider on the waiver wire. If it's possible he's out there, that's somebody who's probably not highly rostered, but he's somebody I would consider. If you could flex Zeke and put a receiver in, that might be better. Not so much. Kenneth Walker got him there, finally being smart. All right, everybody, thanks. Good luck in week 10, and I will talk to you soon.